Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Peacemaker Aftershow. We are talking about episode 5, and things got banana pants crazy in this episode. I'm so excited to talk about it and get into it with you guys. But first of all, my name is Tessa Smith. You guys can find me everywhere, mamasgeeky.com, Mamas Geeky on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, here on YouTube. And yeah, that's where you can find me. John, why don't you let everyone know where to find you?
Oh, you can always find me at The Roca Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, The Outlaw Nation on Twitch, and my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Roca Says. And a big lover of this series and this episode for sure.
Yes, yes, James, we finally got Eagley back.
We did.
Are you so excited? And let everyone know where to find you.
I can be found at Jam White on Twitter, at Jammer White on Instagram, Facebook for everyone that still uses that. And then I'm also on Substack under J Wright, and you can find me lurking around empireonline.com where I write a lot of news and some bits and pieces. And just generally, wherever you can find me, it's all good. It's all good. Plus www.eagleyisbest.com. That's new, and I'm still building it. So, yeah.
Well, let's let you kick off the show because this thing starts with Eagley being like super adorable and sweet and caring about Peacemaker. So why don't you talk about that moment?
It does. I have to admit there were in big letters in my notebook while I was watching the episode. Eagley returns. Is this enough, Eagley? ? It's a great little kickoff moment. It's beautiful. It really shows the friendship between them. Not that we didn't already have the established Eagley Peacemaker relationship, but it's just how Eagley always responds to whenever he seems to be in any kind of difficulty or any kind of trouble. He flies off. He brings a dead creature and presents it to him like your average cat does. It's that perfect sort of cat-dog relationship between those two. And I'm still going back and forth in my mind whether Chris can actually hear what Eagley's saying, or whether like we all talk to our cat or we all talk to our dog and we're like, yes, little one, of course you're doing that, or stop that, get off the furniture, and it's English. You're not really, they're not really understanding the English, but they'll get the tone. And I feel like it's tone between Peacemaker and Eagley. They understand each other on that kind of spiritual level. Yeah, I was really happy to see Eagley back. Yeah, even if he's not technically in action with the gang, I was glad to see them just hanging out and doing their thing. So yeah, fully on board.
Yeah, it was a great opening. It was so sweet because you see him, leading off that like he's all depressed and sad and down. And I love Eagley. Just here's a dead animal. You want to eat it? No, I'm not going to eat it. John,
but he appreciates it.
He does.
Yeah.
What did you think about that opening, John?
Oh man, I loved it. Of course, like getting Eagley to come back here after all the drama we had from those first 4 episodes and everything going on with Judo Master and all the madness of the butterfly stuff. It was nice to kind of go back to this little relationship that we've enjoyed and had kind of previewed in the first episode a little bit through the other episodes here. It was nice to get a little more of time with them. And yes, just like any pet, they go and go and kill something and bring it back to you. You got to deal with it. You cook it. You make it. This is their way of connecting with you and showing you what they can do. We babysit some Chihuahuas here. They love to catch lizards and bring them back to us. And I don't know what we do with them. I just hand them over to my girlfriend and she does whatever she does with them. But it's that way of showing affection and connection, right? And so you love that. And I don't know, James, I might be convinced that he can speak Eagle. So in my mind, maybe he has certain words that he uses with Eagley, or Eagley can speak English and completely understands English. I mean, because I came to this conclusion that Eagley kind of represents America. And so being able to speak to him in English, speak his language, seeing this version of an American here under Eagley's connection under his wings, for lack of a better term, makes sense to me. And I just love this relationship. So it's great to touch base with it again. And it kind of humanizes. It's a brilliant technique to humanize his struggle through the show. When he's saying off-color things, he's saying sexist things, borderline racist things, or overtly inappropriate things. And as we see when he names all the names, there are moments that test your endurance with this. Eagley is the one who kind of humanizes him and makes you feel sympathy for that character as much as possible. So I love it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And then speaking of naming all those names, I know we've even talked about before, some of the moments totally feel like improv, right? There's some moments in here that you're like, did they just keep going? Like, did he just come up with this stuff on his own? Of course, you never know what's on the pages of the script and what's not, because James Gunn is genius. And I feel like he can come up with that stuff too. But I also feel like in that PowerPoint presentation moment, John Cena was just like, what random names can I come up with and just throw out here? But I loved that scene. I thought it was so funny. And then Jennifer Holland shared a photo of behind the scenes. They were watching just a blank screen. The presentation wasn't even there, which
Yeah.
is kind of sad
wow.
because that presentation is hilarious. And to have to
It
act off that. But what did you guys think of just that whole scene? John, you want to go first?
James?
Or James, either one.
Yeah, I'll take it. Well, the one thing I did want to mention is the fact that also online, James Gunn posted a behind the scenes moment of the judo master and Peacemaker scene, and it's him feeding John Cena like suggestions, and it's when he comes up. I can't remember if they actually used it on the show, but I'm not sure they did. But it's the whole Wookiee thing. If you know what I'm talking about, you know
they did use that.
They did use that, yeah, the whole Wookiee thing. And it's the fact that James Gunn came up with it on the fly, but amused himself so much that he could not stop laughing to finally deliver it to John Cena. And then he finally composed himself. And so you see him you hear him off camera just laughing and laughing and laughing. And then he's like, yeah. And then John just goes for it. And then he's like, and now say that's, and it's like, and don't F Chewbacca. Wookiees have teeth in their hole, and then he goes, "Oh, that's canon." And John's like, "What? That's canon." And then he just slips that right into the little speech, and it's just perfect. So I can imagine maybe James Gunn sitting off camera during the presentation moment and everything with the names and everything, and just being like, "Say this and say that." I can imagine some of them were scripted. I'm thinking some of them were probably John because he is himself quite quick at coming up those kind of things. But some of it, I can imagine James Gunn just off the top of his head just being like, "And this person, Mario, Luigi, everything like that." All this stuff just. It's fantastic. I love it. It's just that little moment of Peacemaker really connecting with something and just going off. And of course, that was what ended up in the end credits, of course, for this episode. Just more names, more things. I love the fact that, as Economist points out, some of the people he names are just dead. It's like, how would that even work? It's just great. Yeah, love it.
So great. It's so great. And I love that it's clearly like he's mad at him about his dad, and they address that.
Yeah.
But you know, I just, it was so much fun. We was just throwing everything out. Or even when he's like, I didn't even work on this PowerPoint. He's like, yes, you did. You clearly spent so much time on this. This is the worst. You're so bad at PowerPoint. Like that whole scene is so great. John, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, as we've said before on the show, I watched John Cena from the beginning as a wrestler to where he's now, and you know, the rapping stuff, he did a lot of freestyle rapping when he was first coming into the WWE as this character. It was his way of establishing himself when he was initially a villain or a heel. He would do a lot of freestyle rapping using stuff that he saw in the crowd. So his ability to improv was never out of, in my mind, never out of the realm possibility we were going to see somehow in the show, and have it come up in this way, which was completely unexpected, but so authentic, because this is how this guy would react. There's a million. The thing about him is, yes, at times he seems a little dumb or slow on the uptake on some of these things, but when he's determined about something, he is determined about something. And when he was dropping all these names, these pop culture references that were like span generations, which I thought was genius for the show to do, he was so believable. And look, those are long shots. So that's John Cena dropping a bunch of names either from memory or improving without breaking, without laughing, without cracking up. And I thought, and there was an authenticity, like he believed every name that he was naming was a legitimate possibility that Economos could have used, even though they're ridiculous to use. Instead of using a real life person in the realm of the show, he wanted to use all these fantastical characters and fantastical names. And I thought it was genius. And the fact that everybody around him is not breaking up or cracking up or falling off the chair is incredible. There must be outtakes of them just falling apart at some of the stuff he comes up with. But I thought it was brilliant. And yes, him going after Economos. And then, I mean, Economos has taken so much crap in this show. And we're going to see how that plays out, obviously, as the episodes go along. But we're seeing in a way that he is kind of understanding Chris's point of view here, obviously, because Mern was also calling him out and mouthed to F you an episode ago about what he did. So clearly he's because remember, Economos in Suicide Squad is cocky and swaggering and making fun of them, and here he is kind of being taken to task by Chris through this relationship, and of course that's going to pay dividends down the road. But like seeing this kind of a poignant shot at him and how he took it, I thought was a really great character beat for Chris, but also for Economos as well. And you could tell Chris is getting frustrated with the whole situation, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they haven't really told him much. And even though they're trying to tell him stuff here, they're still not giving him all of the information, which is frustrating him. And then you've got Vigilante in here just, I thought you were showing that they were friends. They were going to go on, the monkey and they were going to go on an adventure. And you're just like, what is happening? But then even after the PowerPoint presentation ends and he kind of talks about, oh, well, he's just always been a bully. Like, that's who he is. Like, what do you mean? He's made fun of all these people. He gives nicknames to people and that's what he does. And they're not nice. Like the Prince Charming, you think, oh, that's a nice nickname. And then you find out very quickly it is not a nice nickname. So I really like that moment of Vigilante. Again, he doesn't care. He's going to do anything for Chris. It's his best friend. Even if he's a horrible person, like he's always been like this. So I thought that was a good reveal in the way they did that. James, what did you think about that kind of moment?
Yeah, I love the whole, let's just call it what it is. It's the penis joke name run. But the thing I loved about it is that once again it shows that little bit of sort of character growth on Peacemaker's part, because it reminded me, here's some of his facial expressions when he starts talking about people call me a bully because they said I was abusive and that hurt my feelings. It's like you don't get, but he is starting to also get it a little bit. It reminded me of there's a meme online, I think, which is from a British comedy show called the Mitchell and Webb Look, which is where there's a Nazi guy who's sort of in costume and he's like, are we the bad guys? And it's kind of like that's what kind of feels like it's percolating into Peacemaker's brain. Like he's starting to realize that a lot of his past actions have been built on bad behavior and awful attitudes about things, and maybe he's starting to realize that he's not such a great guy in his own head. He's starting to really come to that. We see that with the self-pity stuff in the past. We've seen that with him crying. We see it with him depressed at the start of the episode. It's that whole sort of growth in him, that sort of revelation that's starting to like fire up in his brain. And I love it because it's played so perfectly by John Cena and everyone around him. And it's just a great little thing for this character. It's not the sort of character development you normally get in that kind of blowhard, bombastic character. It's a great little moment of self-reflection as well. He still is defending his previous behavior, like, hey, it was so much fun, we're all having fun. and you just see that Vigilante's, he's still defending him, but he's also, you realize that he's also saying like, well, he did these things, and everyone else around him is like, what the hell? It's crazy, but I'm really happy with it. Yeah,
I like that it comes from Vigilante, like someone from his past. It's not just these new people who are already like, it's someone who knows him, and I think that helps him realize exactly how he's been. John, how do you feel?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a great window into their relationship, right? And you can look at it from 2 points of views. Either Vigilante is quite happily in this dominant, submissive relationship with this idol of his because he sees him as a jock who accomplished all this stuff. He's a nerdy kid who's got a very bloodthirsty streak. And so he feels like, I've accepted this person for who he is. Or the other side of it is you can kind of feel pity for Vigilante that he is quite oblivious to this relationship that he is dialed into and connected to, and allows him to have some less semblance of coolness by connection, right? So he thinks this is the right relationship. And the matter of factness with which he speaks about him being a bully, I think, is what disarms Chris. It is, which is a great thing. It's like, yeah, I've just accepted this is how he is. What's the big deal? I haven't had an issue with it. Why do you have an issue with it? Which kind of takes Chris aback a little bit. And James, you make an excellent point. The genius of this show is the slow progression, the believable, organic progression of him understanding that his behavior doesn't work here. This behavior he's learned from his dad clearly doesn't work here. He was obviously a sensitive kid. And of course, we're going to find out more about that past and why he's sensitive. But he was obviously a sensitive kid with an over macho father who tried to beat that sensitivity out of him with macho points of views. But clearly, because of his hesitating to kill the mother and the kids earlier in the show, and then his real kind of taken aback at being called a bully in the names and thinking that it was a fun thing, he's slowly learning that this learned behavior from his dad isn't the right way, isn't who he is as a person. And these little cracks, when they have these moments, are just brilliant. And then they move on. And I think that's great for the audience to kind of register that and put that together with everything as we move through the series.
Yeah. So they go from a moment like that to like, hey, let's prepare to go take this bottle company by storm.
Yeah.
Which gets probably, we'll get into it, but this is like, has made this episode my favorite so far, because that whole scene is just bananas and brutal and crazy. But they're on their way there. Vigilante's trying to bring a chainsaw into this. And his reasoning is,
again, bloodthirsty. Yes.
Yes. His reasoning is, I've just always wanted to kill someone with a chainsaw. Like, okay. So that starts, which ties back around towards the end of the episode. But then they go in, and I love that Peacemaker utilizes that X-ray helmet. That was brilliant. So he walks in, and she's like, "Don't do anything crazy." Within a second, it starts off with bam, shooting some lady in the head, and it continues into one of the best brutal, bloody battles ever. What did you think about the entire bottle company scene? And we'll talk about the very end of it in a little bit. But James, what did you think about it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's wonderfully directed, wonderfully written. It's just great stunt work as well. There's really sort of enthusiastic, really fun stunt work. There's a lot of headshots because that's Peacemaker for you. But yeah, the whole reveal of the helmet, the setup of the helmet is great because not only does it help power that scene, that's why he's shooting all these people. But then later on in the episode, it leads to the basic huge cliffhanger. But it's that little thing. It's everything. It's like the chainsaw leads on to a great moment down the line. The X-ray helmet works for this scene, leads on to a great moment down the line. It's like James Gunn is so clever at seeding these little things into the show and paying them off perfectly. Not just having, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you had an X-ray helmet? Yeah, that's cool. That's fun. That's great for an action scene because then he can start shooting people. But then it leads on into, because we need it for down the line. We need it for a reveal at the end of the episode. The whole thing is fantastic. One of the things I wrote in my notes was grenade tied to a tank shell. Like, honestly, I mean, it's Peacemaker, so you kind of get it, but who thinks of that? And it's just, and I love it that it's not just, hey, isn't it fun that he threw this thing and he blew loads of people up? But then you've got the little moment between him and Adebayo where she's like, you couldn't have said like, oh, run, something like that. He goes, you didn't realize it was a bomb. It's like the two of them together. It's that great little thing. Also is great, which one of the moments that I think is always from the early trailers of the show, where she's shooting the dead bodies. He's going, you don't have to shoot them after I've killed them. And it's so interesting to see how she's changed from the nervy, I've never shot anyone in my life, to the all action, like, I'm going to shoot this guy, even though, already dead. But, thought that counts. But yeah, it's fantastic. And then of course you get onto the big 8 reveal, which of course, again, foreshadowing. News report, like what, 3 episodes previously, 4 episodes previously, someone news report saying gorilla escaped from the zoo, someone took a gorilla from the zoo, and the fact that he's called Charlie, which is fun, and he's not everything we might seem. The only thing I would have said about the episode is, did James Gunn miss a trick by not calling it Gorilla in the Midst? But I don't know whether someone was going to use that. I think maybe, I can't know if that was a Futurama or something else episode title, but yeah, that was my only like negative comment on the whole thing.
One of my favorite parts about that too is it has that zombie vibe, right? Which, from the stuff he's worked on before, they're kind of like climbing over each other and trying to get in the door where Jennifer Holland's character there, where they're like hiding out. They're all like climbing on each other. And so I loved the zombie vibe of that. Like they just kind of switched. It's that hive mind type thing that we're dealing with. But John, what did you think about that whole fight?
Well, first of all, you say DC and you see Gorilla, and I go, Gorilla Grodd? Is that what we're getting? Is it some version? I like, immediately got excited about that. But of course, it wasn't that, to be sadly thanks to a chainsaw. But like in my mind, I was a little worried about that. I loved that the By the way, we are addressing Peacemaker's issues, but Vigilante has some issues that need to get addressed at some point as well. I mean, the idea of wanting to bring a chainsaw just to kill someone with a chainsaw seems a bit out of the norm, but we'll see down the road how that plays out. But no, I like this because we're seeing them work together as a team for the first time. Like we're seeing them all kind of, do what they can do along with Peacemaker's aggressive approach to it. I mean, clearly the best defense is an attack defense there by Peacemaker. So he's putting them in positions where they have to kind of figure everything out. And you're right, the chemistry that he has there throughout with each of them as this goes along is really funny. And then having it turn around to be him that ends up, Economos that ends up killing the gorilla with the chainsaw, which ends up creating this friendship between now Peacemaker and Economos is great. The way what it all leads to. But also, you're right. This is James Gunn again at his James Gunniest, having these kinds of things throughout, having these moments of humor. You don't have to kill everybody after I shoot them, but she's nervous. She's still figuring out where she belongs in the team. But seeing them all work together for the first time in the 5th episode of the show, I think was fun to see overall. And of course, course, Vigilante being upset and then getting jealous, even a little bit jealous now that Chris and Economos have developed a little bit of a friendship here. He liked it when he was making fun of everybody, but now that he's developing a little connection with these people, I think it's going to be something that Vigilante has to deal with as we go along.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I was the only one, but for like half a second there, I thought it was Vigilante who was able to kill him with the chainsaw. Did you guys think that? Like, it was like half a second. I was like, he got to do it. Oh, no, he didn't. Poor guy.
I don't know. I feel like they set it up quite well with Economos on the other end of the radio, being like, guys, where are you? You know, everyone. And he realizes he has to go and help. And then what's available in that truck? Well, you know, maybe we should have seen it coming, but I don't know. I think the way it's directed, the way it's set up is kind of good in terms of just, you don't exactly know what's going to happen with that. You don't know that it could be Economos coming in, because Economos is not somebody you would have imagined picking up the chainsaw and trying to kill a gorilla. So absolutely, you could have thought of like you thought it could have played out the way that Vigilante wanted it to play out on his head, which is Economos showing up, tossing him the chainsaw, great toss, dude, and then him doing the kill. So yeah, I love that, and I think it's a reference to. I know in the first episode, the first woman, the woman that Peacemaker sleeps with and everything, turns out to be the first butterfly we meet properly. She screeches as she attacks him, but I think like the guy pointing and the screeching, that feels very Body Snatchers to me. That feels like a full-on Body Snatchers riff. So that too, you know, was a lovely little grace note that if you know, I mean, you know, everyone knows that picture of who is it from Body Snatchers who's doing
Donald
it?
Sutherland.
It's Donald Sutherland. That's it. Thank you, John. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. Everyone, we all kind of know that from pop culture, but it's a great sort of version of that, because it's aliens doing that again. It's great. It's so much fun. And then at the end, of course, with the Hanoi Rocks thing, the slow bonding over Swedish metal. It's like, and like John, you were saying, you made a great point about Vigilante being upset about the bonding relationship. Like, he's trying to sort of like sing along and be part of that team, but he just knows he's not really part of that gang as much as he might like to be.
Yeah, he's kind of there by default. Like, they're like, I guess we have to keep him here because he knows stuff. So, and I think he knows that, or he feels that way anyway. John, did you at all think it was a Vigilante at all with the chainsaw?
No, just because I was like, how would he have smuggled it in my mind, like logistically, it didn't make sense how he smuggled it in. So, but yeah, and I think what James points out, a great point, like they made a big point of stressing that Economos was freaking out about what was happening. And it's the second time, by the way, that he has come in with whatever he's got available to him to stop some villain. With the Judo Master was ramming the truck into Judo Master's car, and then with this it was taking the chainsaw. So, you know, clearly he's also kind of working out with some violence issues or some feeling like he wants to be part of the team as well in some way, because clearly what he was hired to do, they've been making fun of him about the whole time. So like maybe he wants to kind of atone in some way. And ironically, as James points out, it's over Hanoi Rocks, and he's got a tattoo, which I didn't see coming at all. But that's the truth. But metal, that's the thing about metal or heavy metal or that kind of music. You're always surprised at who the fans are. Yeah, there are the ones with the tattoos and the angry, aggressive, but there's also the kind of nerdy guys who are into the metal stuff and feel a connection to the metal stuff. So when that came about, I thought that was a brilliant character choice to have that. And how many of us have bonded over someone we normally wouldn't connect with because they like the same music or movies or TV shows that we do. So it was a nice moment to have it. Yes, Vigilante's growing anger at that or jealousy at that. It's going to be something.
Yeah, I love that whole ride back. Like, you can tell they're really starting to
they're a team. Yes,
they're a team. Exactly. They're finally like getting along all together. They've done this mission together and they're all getting along, which of course is never a good sign when everyone's getting along. Something's going to end up happening to take that away. But then we also have, Peacemaker's dad here trying to.
Can I ask you a question, Tessa?
Yeah.
What did you think about Amelia and James as well taking the pictures?
Love that.
Now, did you think that was a setup that's like you just said, there's some tragedy coming, there's something coming down the road? Because obviously I haven't seen all the episodes, but like, do we think that's a tease to something? Because she was actually smiling. She was actually part of the team, which is the first time we've kind of seen that from Amelia. Was she letting her guard down, or is there something more here that the show is teasing? I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I felt like it was her finally like being happy, right? And being like, okay, because she's always been so hardened.
Yeah.
She's very hardened from the beginning. And this is her like, oh, we work together as a team. I'm going to take this picture. Like, everyone's having fun. you know how she's been about the music the whole time. She's been
Right.
annoyed by it, and now she's finally like opening up and kind of like enjoying the moment with everybody. So I really, really liked that. James, did you like that part?
I did. I mean, I love the group chat. The fact they have a group chat now. A Black Ops team has a group chat, and they use emoji. And I love Vigilante's little. He uses the mermaid emoji, and Peacemaker's whole. He uses it for happy, sad, and everything in between. He's like, how does that even work? Which is classic Vigilante, which is great. A great little touch. And I love that. And there's like clapping emojis and there's fire emojis and everything like that. And they're bonding and they're great. And I loved it. I mean, honestly, how many times have you ever seen a Black Ops team have a group chat?
This is the first.
Their mission. Hooray, we went and killed a load of people and a gorilla with a chainsaw. It's like, here's a smiley picture of everyone being happy in the van. Yeah, I loved it. And John, it was a really interesting point you made about Harcourt. I mean, it could point to something. Is she informing on them to someone else? Who knows? I mean, that could be something. But of the moment, it just felt like she was finally like bonding with this little team, because she's always been so distant with everyone. Yeah. She's got it. We don't know what her background is exactly. We know about her stuff with her dad and the gun and everything like that. But it feels like maybe she's found these people. They're not so bad. You know, maybe we just all get along in the end, but we'll see. I don't know. It's a fascinating conundrum to worry about for the future. You know, it's nice to see them bonding. Does make you wonder about what could happen.
Yeah, because that's usually in those action movies. As soon as they go, I can't wait till I get home. They're the first one that dies, or we're all a team now. First one that dies. So. And also, Jennifer Holland does a great job with her face, playing these little mini emotions. And as she's taking the picture, that you can read in a number of different directions. She's doing incredible work here. So that's why it made me think, okay, what is this leading to? So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It feels like, especially with James Gunn, he's so good at sprinkling things through, as we've seen and we've talked about, that you're like, oh, is this going to come back to bite us? Is it not? And she's one of my favorites of the. I mean, I love everybody in the series. Like, I feel like everyone brings something to the table, but she's really being showcased here. And I love that we're getting so much of her, because we've talked about it before, but she's just absolutely phenomenal in this series. And I love her. But then we have the whole thing with Chris's dad, Auggie. He's like, now that he knows, I mean, they said, you know, Vigilante was like, I made things worse. And then, of course, Chris goes to visit his dad and just goes to spew all the details to him, which I thought was, why would you even tell him about the fingerprints? Now he has this as ammo to get himself out, and he tries. He does. What did you guys think about this whole moment, John?
Well, first of all, him telling the finger, that didn't surprise me, because when you're in this kind of relationship with an demanding father or overbearing father, like, all your walls go down. And Cena does such a great job playing these child moments, right? He's still in his mind his father's child, like from the first episode when they're sitting there having that food with Eagley in between them, to the subsequent conversations. He is constantly demeaning his son, constantly saying how, you know, you're nothing, or I'm embarrassed of, you're a panty waste. Was it the guy who was that the guy who shot you? You know, all those little things that kind of undercut his self-esteem. So he would logically, to try to connect with his father, try to help him out, try to get him out of the situation and give him this information. I do think it's a little clumsy when when Murren's colleague comes in and he's the new captain. I thought that was a bit kind of shoved in. It didn't 100% work for me organically as they were doing other things in the show. So to me, that seemed a little weird as a convenient plot point to keep him in jail. But overall, him having this information makes him even more dangerous, and the possibility of him getting out now becomes a kind of X factor that is dancing through the next few episodes. So I thought the fact that they did that made sense, but having the Murren's colleague come in, I thought was a bit clumsy.
Yeah, I was immediately like, is he another butterfly? Like, who is he? Is he from like actual Murren's past, or is he like connected by butterfly? Like, what is this all about? And then he was a little like weird. Like, he doesn't, it's not executed as well as I would have liked. James, how do you feel about that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, it seems quite convenient to kind of bring this in. It's like necessary to keep the story going, as opposed to feeling completely organic. I didn't mind it too much, mostly because you had Detective Song just snapping back at Auggie with the names and everything. Like, he calls her Lucy Liu at one point. They do the whole noodle noodle exchange, but then she's just the name she calls it like Guy Fieri. It's just like these perfect, and then she goes, "I'm running out of white guys," and it's just I love that. That's perfectly in line with the humor. That's the kind of banter they've had in the past between the two of them, and it's fantastic. And her determination to try and figure this out. That little conversation with the other cop who's like, "Oh, I don't have the right iPhone to do this. We'll go and find somebody that has the iPhone with the macro and scan the fingerprints and all this." She's just done putting up with all of this crap, and he's just like, okay, let's just get the job done. I believe this. I need to investigate this properly. No one is supporting me. I'm just going to get it done. And then, of course, she'll go off to her uncle, who is a judge, Judge Judy.
Yeah.
She's the most throwaway, stupid joke in the world, but I just loved it. And I like how she and her partner are really just staying a little key part of it, not just off to the side. I know they're doing their own thing technically, but they feel of a piece with this world. They don't just feel dropped in. They feel like absolutely part of Peacemaker world, the way that they talk, the way that they act. And yeah, it was great. It was great. But yeah, John, you make a good point about the captain coming in. It's a little bit sort of easy. Easier than the show tends to do normally by the feel of it. So yeah,
it did. It felt a little too convenient. And James Gunn's usually good at sprinkling those things in. I think the fact that all of us noticed like it was a little convenient is like, but I mean overall the series is amazing. So it's like, oh, let that pass. But he just, I don't know. You're right, exactly about that. But then we've got, speaking of moving plots along, Leota decides to actually plant the journal here, the diary, which I was so mad. Like she put it down and then she picked it up. I was like, oh, is she gonna change her mind? And she kept moving it to other places. I don't know. What did you think, John, that she went and did it?
This is why I see them. I've been seeing the show as a co-lead show. It is Leota's story and it is Peacemaker's story, right? And both with overbearing, domineering parents, right? I mean, Leota's mom is Amanda Waller. You don't get more domineering than that. And you see her struggle because she's throughout the whole show. We know that she's been very vocal about not knowing where she fits in, not knowing if this is the job for her, where she belongs. She only took the job because they need money and they're in between jobs. So her mom helped her out with this. But the things that her mom is asking her to do kind of go against her own code of ethics, her issues with killing people that Emilia calls her out on. And now this diary, which has been hanging around, this possibility of her hiding this diary has been hanging around for a few episodes now. And when she does it, you can tell it's the last thing she wants to do. She goes back and forth about it. But just like surrendering the fingerprints, she's trying to please her mom. And this is still in her place of not knowing where she fits. So she's falling back on stuff that she knows, which is pleasing her mom with any request that she can. And then she'll figure it out whenever the next step shows itself. So the fact that she did it this way I just made me care about her more as a character, just like I'm caring about Chris as a character. Because I think we've all had experiences where our parents can be a little domineering in certain ways. So you connect to that. And I wonder how this is going to get paid off, because we've only seen a couple of appearances by Viola Davis as Amanda Waller in all of this.
Yeah, I was a little frustrated because I was like, you guys all just got along. You have this group chat.
Yeah.
And then you're going to do this and just completely screw him over, as we imagine. We don't know what's exactly in the diary yet, but we will get there. And it's just like, it's sad. Like, again, like you talk about, this foreshadowing is this, they're finally happy. That's never a good thing in a series like this. James, how did you feel about her going ahead and planting that diary?
Yeah, obviously, I was upset to see her finally sort of giving in to her mom's wishes and getting it done. I could see the internal struggle even before she got into the place, because she's like, I don't want to come in for a drink, which you can read in a couple of ways. You can read it as, I don't want to hang around with you. You might be getting better at interacting with people, but you're still a pretty horrible person. I don't want to go into your trash mobile home. And for all she knew, there could be Eagley lurking around, ready to strike. And he's in the bathroom, just casually in the bathroom. I'm guessing he was using the bathroom at the time, because it seems like he's like, hey, there's someone in here. When it's that kind of, I'm not sure if I'm starting to understand him now, but that kind of was what his reaction seemed to be. But I also love the fact that as soon as she did plant the thing, she's driving back and she calls her wife, and that's the first thing she does, and she's freaking out about it, and it's really getting to her that she did this, and she can't say exactly what she's done because her wife doesn't understand what the job is exactly, but it's that internal struggle, and it's really done well. Danielle Brooks plays the hell out of it. It's really written well, it's really directed well. I really did like it, much as I don't want to see her turn against anybody or, do something that'll hurt Peacemaker. The struggle was real. Literally, the struggle was real, and it felt human, and it felt really great for the character. So yeah, much as I'm sad about it, it's a really good character beat.
Yeah, well, to definitely, especially to go from where her wife shows up at the beginning of the episode, and she's just kind of like, okay, I have to go to work, I have to go do this. She's like, it feels like you're choosing this over me. I gotta go. I'm not. I love you. Whatever. To like her calling her just absolutely breaking down. That moment is so heartbreaking. John, do you have anything to add about the moment where she calls her wife?
No, just that it's great to see. I would like to see more with the wife. I have a thing. I'm becoming famous for having this thing of like, don't introduce side characters if you're not going to flesh them out a little bit, because I think you're just using them as plot devices to give more humanity to the main character that you're playing around with. I had this issue with John Walker's wife in the Captain America show. I have these issues sometimes where if you don't flesh these characters out, I don't know what the point of them even having them are. We haven't seen enough with the wife yet. I hope that's coming. She's in the opening credits. She's dancing around with everybody. So I'd like some more here, but no surprise that she calls her wife. Who do you call? You call that one person you trust when you've done something you're not happy about, because A, you either want them to make you feel better, or you want to talk it out so that you arrive somewhere where you're at peace with what you've done. So no surprise at all, but I thought it was a very sweet moment. And again, showed a little more of the humanity to Adebayo that you love to see in the show.
Yeah. And then she says she couldn't sleep. She goes to the office. She decides to play around with that X-ray helmet, turns around. And I just love that moment because she puts it on. And I think everyone's thinking, oh no. Like, is she gonna, and she turns, Mern, you got to see this. And then she sees the little butterfly in his head. Ensue like this major chase. He chases her outside in the rain. It was crazy, that scene. And then they leave it on a cliffhanger, of course, as she's on the ground and he's like hovering over her. And I'm sitting here like, what is he going to do to her? That whole scene was insane. James, how did you feel about how it all played out?
I loved it. I loved it that it was set up, like I was saying earlier, it was set up right at the start of the battle scene at the bottling company. The fact that we knew there was an X-ray helmet to begin with, then he uses it there. Then you think to yourself, oh, hang on, will that then reoccur? And it reoccurs in absolutely the best way. And I loved her little reaction to it. Like the fact that when you see the effect shots were great too, of her looking at her fingers, looking at her hands, looking at other stuff, seeing her Apple, like her little watch and everything, all the internal stuff of that was really good. And then pan round, boom, there we go. And Mern screeches as he realizes he's been sort of found out and goes after her. And it's great. And you do feel that real feeling of tension. We absolutely don't know what he's going to do. This could be the end for one of our main characters. We don't know right now. It's I hope not, but it's great, and it'd be fascinating to see how it plays out. Now that this is another like giant twist, it seems like he's developing a taste for doing the twists around Mern right now. With last week with the reveal, and now the reveal. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see where it goes from here. I mean, it's talk about literally keeping you hooked and making you want to just keep going and wanting to watch more of it. It's great that way. It's really, really effective.
Yeah, great point about the visual effects, because that part was so cool. John, how did you feel about the way this all played out with the X-ray helmet?
Yeah, I think James makes an excellent point. The fact that you don't go right to the Mern thing, you let it build through that sequence was just genius. And that's such smart TV making, for lack of a better term there, that James Gunn is doing on this. But also the idea that you can't sleep. And remember, this only happened because, as James and you pointed out, Tessa, like James Gunn sprinkling these things, episodes ago when he's in that, I can't remember how he describes it, but he's in that lair which has all the stuff for Peacemaker. He initially isn't going to take the helmets and then changes his mind and stacks the bag full of helmets before Vigilante walks in. And so if he doesn't change his mind in that moment, we don't have the X-ray helmet. We don't have this moment revealing Mern to Adebayo. So to me, I thought this was such a great thing to kind of these little micro decisions we make in life. We never know what they lead us to down the road, and it's great construction of the series. So having that happen in that moment and having her see him, I yelled. I remember going, "Oh no!" Because I had no idea, what's going to happen with Mern and her, and because I was still caught up in, and why is she taking the pictures? What is this leading to? Who is dying? Someone's got to be dying. So I thought, oh my God, are they going to kill her? I just thought it was so odd. Plus the way they've built Mern up from the beginning, where he's this real quiet guy who was very kind of I don't know, no nonsense with Peacemaker initially in the first episode, to where you would see him being essentially Amanda Waller light, and then just when he's a little bit loosening up, we find out he's a butterfly. So like, oh my god, so what's this going to lead to? What's his overall goal here? And then having in the and making it in the rain, I thought was brilliant too, kind of adding even more tension to the scene where you can't see clearly in the rain and stuff like that. So, and she's already freaked out about the fact that she doesn't fit into this world. So the fact that this could be the end of her in a job that she's taking just to make some money in between jobs is a hard thing to grasp in that moment. So it was well put.
I mean, the fact that we knew as an audience that he was a butterfly, but
right,
this is now like people close to him or on the team anyway are figuring it out, or she's figuring it out. And he seems like he's gonna like kill her. I mean, that's how it feels. He's hovering over her. It's pouring rain. She's on the ground like this. It's like, can they really just kill off a main member? Yes. Look at what James Gunn did with the Suicide Squad. That's like, it could definitely happen. But this episode overall was one of my favorites because I love the action. Again, we get the humor, right? That PowerPoint scene is absolutely hilarious. And then again, another cliffhanger, of course. James, what did you think about this episode overall?
Yeah, I was really happy with this episode. I think it ranks maybe my second favorite. I still love the first episode, I think, but this is probably right up there. Just for certain little moments, just for Tank Grenade, just for the development with the characters, just for everything. The way it was hilarious in times. It was action packed at moments. It had the development. It had everything else. It had Eagley. So obviously I'm on board. But it's great. This show is developing so well. It's growing organically for the most part, except for maybe that one little thing about the captain. I just think it's been so well plotted out, given how fast James Gunn had to come up with this thing, because he basically started writing it just as Suicide Squad was in post-production, and gets it shot, gets it done, gets it out. It's like you have people who've had years to work on their TV shows and they're not this good. So it's I'm not naming any names right now. I'm definitely not talking about anything to do with any bounty hunters or anything like that. But it's
you stop it, you.
This is just an example of really, really well thought out TV. And this episode, absolutely on board, absolutely a big fan. I can't wait to see it. It did the perfect thing, as I just said earlier. It absolutely makes me want to see where we go from here. So completely.
As soon as it ends, it's like, what's next? You can't leave me like this. John, how did you feel about this episode as a whole?
Listen, all 5 episodes are incrementally tied for me, because I've really enjoyed, so as James points out so eloquently, the way they've constructed the series, rather, the season has worked so well and so organic through all the different changes of the characters, through all the paths that they're walking down. But this first episode, the first episode and this episode, I think are the most James Gunniest. And if you can get through the first episode, it's hooked you, then you're watching a little more of the characters. Now James Gunn takes the 5th episode and brings them together as a team, but goes next level with that whole name sequence. That could turn a lot of people off. That really could have turned a lot. So you're either in or you're out going into these last few episodes. This is the episode. It's like, this is what the show is going to be going forward now. We're going to build upon this and go in even crazier ways or crazier directions and crazier levels here with the show. And I appreciated that and loved it. So I enjoyed the hell out of this episode for a lot of reasons. Certainly the Eagley stuff, of course, as James pointed out, but also the fact that you're getting James Gunn's genius throughout this episode, and the chances that he's taking that works so well. And you're right, James. I mean, the fact that he put this together so quickly and shot it and made it work so well. I mean, some people just work really well under the gun, for lack of a better term, and James is one of them. We saw this with David Milch with Deadwood, for my opinion, in some of the best seasons of NYPD Blue. There are just people who are just have an ability to create these connective tissues quickly within the construct of a season or TV show, and they're borderline geniuses in their ability to do that. And certainly here with this, we're seeing it in this episode for sure.
And in a pandemic. He had to do this all in a pandemic.
Right.
It's crazy. Can you, all the COVID protocols they have to have on set, and to be able to do this and have it be so good is just mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. James, do you have a favorite moment? Can we assume it's Eagley?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had to stay on brand. But there was Eagley, but there was also the one thing I think that we haven't touched upon from the episode, which is, and it's another thing where I seriously find myself imagining James Gunn in the room pitching it to the executives and then going, "You want him to say what?" And it's the Superman poop fetish thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's just. I mean, he's already called out Batman as a you know what, but in an earlier episode, and now he's saying Superman has an Aquaman screws fish, Batman's a worse. Superman has a poop fetish, and I can seriously imagine some DC people going, "We love you, James Gunn, but you really want them to say what now?" And yeah, that's that. But I'm going to go with a combo. I'm going to go with a combo of Eagley and Tank Grenade, even though that doesn't sound like a great combo because that could be very dangerous for Eagley. So but yeah, I love it. I'm going with Eagley all the way because you know how I feel about Eagley. I can't get off the Eagley train.
How about you, John?
Look, God love DC for being willing to not be precious about their main characters.
Mm-hmm.
To have someone like Peacemaker, and he's not done, by the way. He's not.
Yeah,
done
we've seen in a clip. There's more
some of the main characters. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
So, but because it's John Cena, I think people have a natural letting go of it because he's kind of charming in that way and what he's doing, and it's crazy the things that he's saying, but it totally works. No, to me, the Hanoi Rocks moment, that's the moment that feels so real. Having grown up in Southern Virginia with friends who were into that stuff, who would play it for me. I was never into heavy metal or anything, but they would play it for me nonstop. And to me, it felt like I was back home in Virginia meeting those guys again or hanging out with those guys again. So I loved that moment very much. And it's moments of connection are cool when they happen, and dudes sometimes can be so walled off because of how we've been taught by our dads how to be. So when you have those moments where you kind of let the guards down a little bit and connect, it's kind of really cool to see, and you can cherish it in shows like this, which is so unusual. But I liked it as a moment for sure. That was my favorite moment.
Yeah, for me, besides the super fun gorilla getting chainsawed in half, which was crazy, just the blood everywhere, and the fact that he doesn't use a towel and clean himself off before he's in the van, he's just still covered in this gorilla blood. Like, what are you doing? There had to have been a bathroom in that bottle company. You could have sprayed some water on yourself. But other than that, it's really, I think, Leota, when she leaves after she hid the journal there, the diary, and calls her wife and kind of breaks down. And then leads into the fact that she couldn't sleep. I'm really loving her character development. And again, as you guys have both pointed out, the whole parent thing, they're both dealing with, horrible parents. And I think they're both pretty on par with each other. Amanda Waller and Auggie they're both pretty horrible people. But yeah, that was probably my favorite moment. You guys have anything else to add for episode 5 that you want to talk about?
No, I feel like we kind of covered it. I feel like
so.
Not as much. Yeah.
Watch
all
him.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna say. Watch him.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. Well, I'm excited for episode 6 next week. We will be back here with you guys to break it all down. But before we go, I'm Tessa Smith. You guys can find me everywhere online at Mama's Geeky, mamasgeeky.com. John, why don't you let everyone know again where they can find you?
Yeah, always at The Roca Says on Twitter and on Instagram and TikTok, and the Outlaw Nation on Twitch. Been doing some watch-alongs of the NFL playoff games, but also going to be doing some watch-alongs of movies coming forward with Amazon Prime, so come and join me there. And then my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Roca, and my podcasts, The Top 10, The Cinephiles, and The Geek Buddies. They're out there for you to listen to.
And how about you, James?
And I am at Jam White on Twitter, Jammer White on Instagram. You can find me on Substack at J Writes, where I write a weekly sort of review of stuff that's coming out, and also some pop culture columns occasionally when the mood strikes. Also, I'm all over EmpireOnline.com, Empire Magazine's website, where I do lots of news and occasionally pop up in the magazine too. Occasionally appear on their podcast too, the Empire Film Podcast, which is awesome. And generally that's pretty much everywhere. Just hold off and wait for the Eagley fans Etsy store that I will be setting up at some point in future, selling all the Eagley merch you could possibly want and some you don't even need. So yeah, absolutely.
I'll be shopping there. Trust me.
You'll be my one customer.
I love Eagley, but you're hyping me up even more for every time I talk to you. I'm like, I love Eagley even more. How is that possible?
Yeah.
So you're doing a good job. Head of this fan club.
You have to create a shirt where the wings come out from the front of the shirt to hug you in the back. That's
yes.
a shirt like
perfect.
That.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah. Love it.
I should mention to you guys too that I've been I'm doing reactions to Peacemaker on my YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, you can see from when I was watching my screeners. They are on there if you guys want to see exactly how I reacted when I was watching the episode. It's usually a lot of and me trying to stop from saying bad words because it's one of those. Although they say enough bad words. So. But thanks for joining us, guys. We can't wait to break down next week's episode. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe to the Hollywood Critics Association YouTube channel because there's tons of after shows pretty much for any of the stuff that you watch. So be sure to check it out. Thanks, guys.